Ryan, have you got any white friends?
Yes, mate. My missus is Irish.
Yeah, right.
So...
Have they been stopped as many times as you?
No. I mean,
so why not? Let me just finish, Ryan. The question is, look, I've been stopped over 73 times, Ryan, and I am 57 now. I have no problem, like you, when I'm stopped by the police. None whatsoever. Yeah. The problem I have is, in all of that time, I've never been breathalyzed, because I suppose they assume that I'm not drinking. They're looking for drugs. I don't smoke, okay? Yep. And on no occasion have they given me a valid reason. Listen, I understand. My brother works for the National Crime Agency and my niece is a chief super. So I've got no issue with the police at all. The problem I have, it's that the regular police on the street, you can't just identify me as a criminal simply because I'm black. And that's what's happening to you. Because if you're being stopped more times than your white friends, why is that? Clearly,
Gary, but one thing...
Go on, Ryan.
One thing I'd like to say for starters, mate, this is not meant to be rude in the slightest, but you need to look at your driving if you've been stopped that many times, because there's no reason to pull anyone over, whether you're black, white or Mr. Blobby, for the way you're driving. If you're getting pulled that many times, that means that you must be Specsavers, my friend. That is probably the best thing I can say to you.
Ryan, sorry.
Hold on, Ryan. Let's Gary reply to that.
Ryan, that's a very patronising comment.
I don't mean to be, but...
Let me just finish, Ryan. If I had been doing something wrong and illegal, surely they would have nicked me.
Yeah, totally.
Now, let me give you an example, Ryan. I was working for my local authority. I got pulled over by two vehicles, one across the front of my car and one boxed me in, Yeah. They said initially that I looked like someone that had been disqualified. I said, am I? They said, well, no, you're clearly not. Then they said your tax was out of date. I said, how could you possibly see my tax from behind, which is where you were? Then when I said to them, I'm actually going to meet the sergeant because I was dealing what was called a Safer Cities project with the police.
I'm assuming your tax was not out of date, Gary.
No, my tax was not out of date. They changed their tune. They said to me, oh, you're going to see the Sarge, are you? I said, yes, I am. I said, do you think I need to explain to them why you pulled me over when you've got no excuse? Ryan, I could give you chapter and verse, and at no time, Ryan, do I drive erratically. I've got no points on my licence. I've got no speeding fine, and I do not need Specsavers. But you're just being deluded by the fact that you can't admit that there are racists in the police, and they could
No.
Listen,
Hold on, Gary. Let Ryan answer that one.
My turn. I've let you had a good old feel there and tell me your piece. For starters, I never once said that I don't think there's any racism in the police force, because I know categorically there is. And what I'm saying is, it's like anything else. There is always good and there is always bad. On top of that, when you're talking about the amount of times you've been pulled over and you've never done anything wrong, I have done things wrong. For example, when I was 20 years old, I had 20 points on my licence. When I was that young, I did do stupid things. Never anything like outrageous, but I had loads of points for no insurance and all the rest of it. Since then, as someone that should stand out as potentially, if you ran my name after all that stuff, because obviously ever since I learnt my lesson when I was 20 years old, I've never driven a day without insurance and all the rest of it in my life.
All right, Gary's turn. Go on, Gary.
Respond to that. Ryan, that's fair. You had 20 points. Ryan, my driving and my life experiences, as far as I'm concerned, have been exceptional up until now. Well, right through till now. I've never done anything wrong. I've never been in trouble with the police. I've never driven a vehicle without insurance or tax or anything. In actual fact, I was stopped by the police while coming home from work. They said that the car wasn't insured. I rang my son at home to open the document that had been delivered a few days
Gary,
earlier.
do you mind me asking what type of car you drive?
Yeah,
I was driving an old Fiesta.
What?
I wasn't expecting that, Gary.
I was expecting a Daimler or something.
Let me just quickly finish. They pulled me over. They accused me of having no licence. Now, I know the police practices and they check your number plate before they've even pulled you over. They rang my insurance in my own vehicle, and the insurance confirmed, yes, this person is insured to drive. They then said, oh, your brake lights weren't working. I then pulled out the MOT certificate, because that's where I'd just come from, and said, here's an MOT. I asked one of the police officers to put the brakes on while me and the other police officers looked at my brake lights. They all came on. I went in the next day to the police station and say, I don't want to make a complaint. I just want to highlight something. And straight away, the desk sergeant started to try and defend his officers without even getting their side of the story. So, Ryan, I'm not saying that you haven't been stopped or whatever the case may be. But what I'm saying is, if we were all black, how would the police deal with stop and search or anything else?
It's going to have to be the last point because I've got to move on. But Ryan, go on.
Just quickly, that's quite an easy point. If it was a case of we're all black, then you just look at who was doing the wrong things. But just quite an important point I'd like to make here to you, Gary, because you point out all the times you've not done anything wrong. What I will say, just to finish off on my point, is I used to work in East London. I have been within 20 metres of a drive-by shooting. In fact, two, because one was a drive-by into the shop next door to my pub, and another one was on the adjoining road. On both those occasions, we're talking about German cars with black guys driving. Yeah, so all I'm saying is if you want to look at who do you go after, because statistically, you're trying to do your job and you're more likely to find someone up to no good, what are you going to look at? Are you going to look at the 50-year-old white woman, or are you going to look at the guy in the German car with the blacked-out windows, leaning back so that he can't be seen behind the A-pillar of his own car, driving like an absolute nutter, and it's very, very obvious what you're going to look at. I know that I know, like I said, I agree, there is racism in the police. There's racism in every single walk of life. And don't get me wrong, because I'm a massive Danny Rose fan, because I'm a Spurs fan. So I really feel for what he's going through, because he's just going to be disproportionate. But what I'm saying to you is for your average Joe walking down the street or driving in the road, if you're getting pulled over, like I'm saying for yourself, that's a hell of a lot. There's got to be something there.
Boys.
But for me, every time I've been tugged, it's because I have done something wrong. I've never once been pulled out of hand just by the police for no reason. And they pulled me over when I've been speeding and all the rest of it, and they've always been totally cool with me. So other reasons.
All right. Gary, did you want to say something very finally?
Yeah, just quickly.
Go on.
Ryan, I appreciate what you've just said, but you've been doing something that's wrong that requires the police to pull you over. What I'm saying to you is I do not require the police pulling me over when I've done absolutely nothing wrong. And just because I am black or any else is black, that's not a reason to pull me over. I'm not responsible for black crime. I'm an individual like anyone else. If there's lots of white people rioting in Devon, all the white people in London don't get pulled over. So don't categorise us all as criminals, because we're not.